Hey, welcome back. This is Newbies to Movies, and I'm Justin. And this week we have a special guest on, Mr. Mason, regularly occurring guest.
Thanks for having me back. Always great to be on here.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This week we'll be diving into Robert De Niro as an actor. I guess we could also say we're doing Martin Scorsese Part 2, as both these movies we're doing are also directed by Martin Scorsese. But specifically, we're diving into his roles in Casino and Raging Bull, which two movies that are widely talked about. And I've been wanting to watch for a long time. So I was excited to get into these this week. But first, we'll kind of talk about what else we've been watching. Mason, you been watching anything cool lately?
I just started watching The Boys because everyone else has seen it. So I figure I might as well be able to talk about it with people. That show is so weird, though.
How far did you get into it?
I watched the whole first season.
Oh, yeah, dude. You got it in for you. Because I always tell people, too, like you think about it with shows like this. The first season, it's a real risk. So they don't renew it for the second and third season unless it does well. So that first season, I mean, it's definitely weird, but they're willing to take way more risk in season 2 and 3 because they know people enjoyed the first one. So, yeah, just heads up, you got it coming for you. It gets way worse.
That's awesome.
I do really like the idea of, we're kind of, people call it the superhero fatigue, right? This is kind of a hard counteract to that because we see exactly probably what it would be like in the real world if we had superheroes. So it's pretty neat to see something different besides Marvel and DC all the time.
Yeah, it's definitely a unique and interesting take on superheroes.
Yeah, I don't know if you know, but they just wrapped up season 5 and the show's over officially now, but they're going to do a bunch of spin-off series and such. So I'm not going to talk too much about the ending, but yeah, it was safe. They played it safe for sure, which I wasn't that much of a fan of, but you'll see.
Not really.
Yeah, so yesterday I had nothing going on. So me and Madison, we kind of decided we're going to go to our local theater, Regal, and we decided to get the Regal Unlimited. So
Shout out Regal.
Shout out Regal. So we're going to be watching a lot of movies this summer because we just bought the unlimited pass so we can go see as many movies as we want. With that said, we were like, okay, there's 2 we want to see. This episode's coming out way later, but The Backrooms just came out this weekend. It opened this weekend, and then The Mandalorian and Grogu last weekend. So we were like, that's 2 movies we want to see. We thought we were going to have hard time finding theaters for The Backroom. Instead, it was the exact opposite. We had a hard time getting a theater for Mandalorian and Grogu. There was about 5 showings yesterday, and it just came out last weekend. And there was about 20 showings for The Backrooms, which is kind of embarrassing for Disney, to say the least, that they're getting that pushed out to the side. But I guess when you just make BS movies, that's kind of what happens. Yeah, it's pretty embarrassing. I just kind of want to go over it real quick. So Mandalorian and Grogu's budget was $165 million, and it opened last weekend with $167 million. So broke even on the first weekend, but that is the lowest of any Star Wars movie ever, including Solo, a Star Wars story. And then you look at something like Backrooms, it had a $10 million budget, and Friday alone it made $38.4 million, and it's projected to get over $120 million. It's just very hilarious to watch a production studio like A24, which we did a couple of weeks ago on the podcast, take risk on these young directors. And then Disney's just playing it safe, trying to sell toys and making shit movies. And that's what they get, I guess. I don't know. Just pretty embarrassing to watch. And I was talking to Tyler yesterday. I don't know where Star Wars goes from here. That was the only thing they had left that was like half decent. And then you just make a nothing burger of a movie. I told Tyler, I was like, I can't even spoil it for you because nothing happened in the movie. Like, I could tell you exactly what happened and you'd be like, that's it? Like, there was just nothing to it. There was no stakes. There was no real plot development. It just felt like 3 episodes of the Mandalorian TV show that they crammed together. So I would go watch it, but I'd watch it just to be like, yeah, I just wasted 2 hours of my life that I'm not getting back. But Backrooms was really good. I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer. Backrooms was super enjoyable. I thought I'm a big hater on horror movies because they don't develop characters that well, but they definitely did in this movie, and it really showed, with great acting as well. So definitely recommend that one.
That's surprising to me because I honestly was not even going to consider watching The Backrooms because it's like we're making a movie about like an internet meme.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? I mean, if you're saying it's that good, then I'll definitely consider watching it.
Yeah. Obviously, I don't know if you know, the director is 20 years old, and a lot of people are saying like a ghost director helped him kind of make this, but He's kind of came out and interviews and stuff. He's been working on this since he was 13, 14 years old. He was making backrooms clips on his iPhone.
Wow.
Yeah. And so if anybody, yeah, just let him keep cooking, because they did like enough lore to like make a second movie, but not enough to be like, oh, okay, that's all I need to see of the backrooms. Like I'm still intrigued and I want to know more, which is good. That's how you build up a franchise, right? And that's how you set up a franchise to make a lot of money. And I think they're definitely on that path, especially if they keep the box office going like this. I wouldn't be surprised if they announce a sequel in the next couple of days. It's already killing the box office.
Yeah, well, that's
But yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens. I think A24, obviously, I didn't even bring it up, but Obsession is doing numbers right now too. The other horror movie they had come out this weekend, which is big time. So yeah,
that
sorry to
looks
go on a
crazy.
little rant. Yeah, that one looks good too. I just haven't had a chance to see that one, but Regal Unlimited, baby. I'll be back there tomorrow. But yeah, so starting, we'll get into Casino. I've been kind of wanting to do Robert De Niro for a long time. Madison had mentioned kind of doing the friendship between Robert De Niro and Joe Pesci pretty much in every movie together, but also pretty much in every Scorsese movie together. Not every single one, especially his later movies, but it was interesting to see that pretty much every movie, they're like best friends in the movie, and then they're definitely best friends off screen as well.
I didn't know that part.
Yeah. Getting into the plot, I gave it an 8 for Casino. Kind of follows the rise and fall of the mob's control over Las Vegas in the 1970s and 80s. And I found out it's actually based on a true story. A lot of the casino names and the characters' names are changed up, but it is about the illegal operations to kind of skim millions of dollars untaxed in casino profits through these mafia guys in the Midwest, which is kind of interesting. Never really knew that story about it. We kind of know about, the rise of Vegas and how that all happened, but the initial, kind of creation of it was all kind of funded through this, which was interesting to see. But what do you think about the plot?
I mean, yeah, I didn't know it was based on a true story, but that definitely makes sense because it's so grounded in reality. Nothing like really crazy, like out of the ordinary happens where like that would only happen in a movie. Like it's all seems pretty realistic, but it's so like well driven by the characters and their motives. I gave like a 9.5 just because I love a movie like that where it's like not trying to hit beats on the plot. We're just following the characters doing what they would do in this world that you created. So I really enjoy the plot.
Yeah, kind of getting into that with the characters. I gave the characters a 7. I think the main characters, right? You had Sam, who they called Ace Rothstein, played by Robert De Niro. And then you had Nicky as well, who was kind of his bruiser, right? He was kind of on his side all the time, just ready to hold down everybody. Obviously, they had a kind of a falling out at the end. And then Ginger as well. I think those main three characters are really exciting, really fun to follow. But after that, I kind of felt like every other character was just an Italian mobster, and they played a side role in it. But yeah, it was interesting to see.
I give characters a 9.7. I love, like, I know there's really only like 3 characters to care about in the whole movie, but they're so good.
Yeah.
And they're all like, they all kind of have their own motives. Nicky's like power driven. He just muscles his way through everything. Like Ace is like, I need to control every little detail. And that's how I give my power. Ginger's like about the money. And it's like representing like all these different ways that people seek power and seek control in their lives and how they like clash with each other. And I just think the characters drove this movie so well, like so well done. And that he adds such like a nice level of depth to the characters. Like when Nicky is like turning the portraits around while he's robbing them, like that's such an interesting little thing to add for the character.
Yeah, it's almost like you can't make it up, right?
Yeah.
And one thing like you mentioned is kind of how they all want to get to power. It's cool to kind of see them all converge at the end and how they all got greedy, right? And kind of the repercussions of that in each of their respective ways to gain power. We just see them all kind of fall at the end, and the way it's done is really cool. I'll get into that a little later though. With cinematography, I gave it a 9. I thought it was really well shot. The cinematographer was Robert Richardson. He works with Scorsese on a lot of his movies, but it was very hyper stylized. I mean, we just went to Vegas a couple months ago and it very much felt like that. I don't know if they specifically filmed in Vegas, but it felt like Vegas. And I think a lot of the dynamic camera movements, especially while De Niro is kind of narrating over how everything in the casino goes in the beginning. I thought that was so neat how the camera was kind of following the movement of money through the casino, especially in the back room where they were kind of counting and moving out all the money. That was a really neat scene. And I think the cinematography in general for this movie was just really amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I would just echo pretty much what you're saying. I gave it like a 9. It just
Yeah.
perfectly reflects what Vegas is all about.
Yeah. And then the dialogue, I gave it an 8. I thought the dialogue in this movie was really great. My favorite line was from De Niro playing Ace. He said, in the casino, the cardinal rule is to keep them playing, keep them coming back. The longer they play, the more money they lose. And in the end, we get it all. I think this was early in the movie, and I think it's a perfect representation of how kind of, that greed kind of overcame him in the end of the movie. But you see this quote as a sign of, yeah, he's going to get greedy, and this is going to be the downfall of him as a character, but also the casino as a whole.
I love the dialogue in this movie. I gave it like a 9.7.
Yeah.
I don't think there's like a wasted line the entire movie. It's all just perfectly driving the story along, perfectly showing like what the characters' intentions are and the tensions between them. De Niro and Pesci arguing could just be like, it could be 5 hours of that and it'd be a great movie.
Yeah. Pesci is always like, I feel like he's always playing this like outlandish, like spiraling character who's just going to throw a fit all the time. And I think of the scene when they were in the country club and the banker came to talk to them, and Pesci was just straight up threatening the guy who has all of his money, and you just see him spiraling out of control so fast. And the banker's just sitting there like shitting his pants. He doesn't know what's going on. Yeah, but they're always so great together. Getting into set design, I gave it a 9. I thought it was pretty well done. So I was kind of reading about it. The Tangiers Casino is a fictional place, obviously, but Scorsese talked about how it served as a visual metaphor for the characters itself. Just kind of the environment being so sporadic and always stuff going on, as we see. Sam Ace, he's kind of always standing in the middle of the casino watching the tables. He's very calculated about everything that goes on there. And so everything around him is always super fast moving as well, which makes perfect sense, right? He's clearly a really smart guy. He just kind of let greed get the best of him.
Yeah, I give set design an 8.5. It's done well. I like that there's a contrast between like when you're in the casino and it's all glamour and it's all this promise of all this wealth, and then they're in the desert where there's like nothing going on, or they're in a rundown diner or something. I thought it was done well.
Yeah, I thought it was cool to point out too, like in the movie, I know this is more costume design and everything. Everybody was all dressed up in Vegas back then. And he kind of talks about that in the end, about how Vegas just became this corporate sanitized playground, but and now everybody just like vacations there, but before it used to be like a real business environment, which is just kind of crazy to see the contrast. And I think they showed that really well at the end of the movie as well. Getting into acting, I gave it a 7. I think Robert De Niro as Ace, Sharon Stone as Ginger, and Joe Pesci as Nicky were really amazing. Besides that, I think the supporting actors fell flat a little bit. I felt like every supporting actor was kind of playing the same role. I know they had different roles in the gambling scheme, right? Everything that was going on. But besides that, I felt like everybody was kind of middling off. They were kind of one-dimensional and flat. But I know that's what's going to happen with supporting actors sometimes, especially in a movie this long. You didn't have time to build up supporting characters that much anyway.
I mean, that's definitely a valid take. Like all the other characters are just there for the 3 main characters, but I gave it a 9. I thought the acting was great with the 3 main characters.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And that's most of the movie.
And then getting into directing, I gave it a 9. I mean, obviously Scorsese's a legend in the flesh, but he actually co-wrote this screenplay with the author of the book that I told you it was based on. So they kind of adapted a book that was called Casino, Love and Honor in Las Vegas. So it's pretty cool to see that, obviously based on a true story. So it's a secondhand writing of it. But yeah, Scorsese's just kind of a master class of working on these mob movies all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I gave it like a 9. I'm sure there's things he's doing with the directing that are just going way over my head. that I
Yeah.
just can't catch. But I don't notice any like flaws for sure.
Yeah, his movies are always so well written. Like you said earlier, there's never like a wasted line.
Yeah.
It's always there's intent with every scene, which just makes his movies that much more interesting because you see some of these movies and there are wasted lines, right? There's kind of like nothing scenes that are just there to be there. And that's what kind of makes movies drag sometimes. But his movies, everybody's always locked in throughout the whole movie. And that's what makes them so great. Getting to the soundtrack, I'm going to start a new segment this week. I told Tyler
Oh,
Justin's needle drop of the week.
okay.
This movie, when House of the Rising Sun came on, when everybody's getting offed, that was so well done and so well placed. I feel like, kind of like I was talking about earlier, you see the characters' greed stacking up, and then kind of the repercussions of what happens to all of them. Obviously, Ginger ODs with all her cash that she spent in literally a week. I think it was like $20 million or something like that in a week. Obviously, Nikki gets offed by his gangsters for, I don't know if he necessarily ratted on them, but they kill him and his brother and bury them right there in the middle of a cornfield. And he thought he was meeting them on good intent. And then, yeah, obviously we see Sam kind of go into hiding, but then somebody tries to blow up his car and he narrowly escapes based on the manufacturer of his vehicle putting in a metal plate in right where the bomb was. So it kind of helped block it off. But obviously he still feels not that safe. I think playing that song there was just really well done. And I think that would be my needle drop for this week.
Yeah, it's a great song for
Yeah.
that part of the movie. Like, just perfect choice. I love the soundtrack of this movie. There's a lot of blues, a lot of Rolling Stones.
Yep.
Just great songs.
I think they played Give Me Shelter by the Stones too, right? Yeah, that was a good one too. Definitely it fits that vibe and that time period for sure. Getting into the themes of this movie, definitely a lot you could dive into here with those main three characters. Mainly, though, unchecked greed, right? They all got greedy, and that's kind of what led to their own self-destruction. But also the erosion of relationships built on very bad foundations, right? The relationship between Nikki and Sam wasn't always that great. They were kind of partners, but it was never built on like a strong foundation. They just kind of knew each other from back home. Same with Sam and Ginger. She never loved him in the first place. So starting out a marriage and having kids like that is probably not the best idea. But also Sam's relationship with the mob in the Midwest, they never really talked to each other. They never really met. It was just kind of a no dialogue relationship. So that was, again, a bad foundation with no real communication in it. And we kind of see how all that led to a really bad situation.
Yeah, it's definitely a huge part. That's like strikingly obvious in the marriage,
Mm-hmm.
just because like they both know from the get go what they're getting into, and then it goes exactly as you expect from the beginning of it. And then just like all these characters trying to get control
Mm-hmm.
over their lives through different means, but then they don't control themselves as they're doing it. And so they kind of like just ruin. I mean, like they say many times in the movie, like they had a good thing going and then it all gets ruined because they couldn't like just enjoy that more. They always had to look for more.
Exactly. That greed kind of just ate up everybody. The other one I'd mention too is Ginger's relationship with her pimp, Lester. She obviously that's not a great foundational relationship, but she always kept going back to him for some reason. And that kind of led to her downfall and his downfall as well. Finally, getting into the editing, I gave it a 9. I thought it was really well done. Very high stakes shots of Vegas, which was really cool. And the editor, Schoonmaker, won an Academy Award nomination for Best Film Editing on her work. So I thought it was really well done. I think that everything was pieced together well. And one thing I'd say about Scorsese films is he always puts everything in order really well. I think it was interesting to have the opening scene of De Niro's car blowing up. So the whole movie, we're sitting there thinking, oh, he's going to die, right? And then by the end of the movie, we realize, oh, he didn't die, but everybody else around him did essentially, which is a nice curveball to add to the movie.
Yeah, that's a crazy choice to open up with like the main character exploding, but it definitely works really well. I gave editing like a 9.5. I thought it was great. I don't know if this falls under editing, but like the way they handled the exposition with like Joe Pesci or De Niro, like talk, like just giving straight up exposition
Yeah.
for like an hour and a half of the movie.
Yeah.
It's like, it was really well done. And you would think that would get boring, but they just do such a good job of it.
No, definitely. And I think, no, it definitely counts as editing because I think it's definitely a choice to have, yeah, being narrated by your main characters for such a long period in the movie. It could really drag if you did that bad. If they weren't explaining stuff you aren't interested in, it could go downhill so fast. Like it could, like you said, get very boring. So definitely a big editing choice to do that. And also, De Niro and Pesci just have the coolest mobster voices ever. So how can you not listen to that for an hour and a half?
So good.
Yeah, it was really amazing. Leading to my final score, I gave it an 8.2 out of 10 or an 82. I mean, yeah, you put these two guys on screen, Pesci and De Niro, it's just going to work out. And especially setting it up with a good director like Scorsese, I mean, you're just asking to have a blockbuster hit on your hands.
Absolutely great movie. I gave it a 92. Probably the only 3-hour movie. I'll sit down and watch the whole thing.
So you said you had seen this one before, right?
I have.
Yeah, I hadn't seen this one before, but everybody always talked about it all the time. You know, I'd seen things like Heat that De Niro's in, and everybody's just like, yeah, you got to go watch this. It's such a good movie. And yeah, I definitely, it seems like there's 1,000 more movies that De Niro is in with Scorsese. So I got a lot of watching to do.
Yeah. You get a lot of Scorsese episodes.
Yeah. Getting into the next movie, we also watched Raging Bull. I didn't know a lot about this movie, but I've always seen the clips of the fighting scenes and kind of TikTok edits and that kind of stuff. But yeah, I was excited getting into this one. So Raging Bull follows the self-destructive life and career of the middleweight boxing champ, Jake LaMotta. He's obviously driven by kind of extreme violence, sexual insecurity, and paranoia. The whole movie, his whole life essentially is what we follow. And his temper kind of helps him become a champion in the ring, but it destroys his personal life, right? It destroys his life with his wife, Vicky. And then it also fractures his relationship with his brother, guess who? Joe Pesci. And then ultimately leaves him just very isolated and alone in his life. And you can tell he really hates that. But for the plot, I gave it a 9.
Yeah, I mean, you did a great job summarizing that. I don't know if you got that the first time you watched it. The first time I watched this, I just did not get it. I was expecting a boxing movie.
Yeah.
It's definitely about like the isolation of this guy and how he's destroying his life. But I gave it a 9.2. It's really well done. It's not what I expected.
Mm-hmm. I think, yeah, I see what you're saying. I think if you're not absolutely locked into Jake's character throughout this movie and you're kind of viewing this as a boxing movie, it would get really hard to track what's going on, why this is happening. I could see why somebody would finish this movie and be a little bit confused just because it's a lot going on. You know, it's following basically what I'd say 25, 30 years of his life. He's probably 20 when the movie starts, 20 to 25. And then it's ending him in retirement age, I'd say 40, 45. And so it's a lot to track, and especially all the relationships he has going on. But obviously, he's a very self-driven man. He wants to kind of prove everybody wrong and do everything on his own. And that's what I instantly took away from it at the beginning, just him wanting nothing to do with the mobsters that his brother hangs out with. Kind of getting into that with the characters, I gave it an 8. I think, again, the big three. I think Robert De Niro, Joe Pesci, and then Vicky, played by Kathy. How do you say her name? Moriarty, I think is her name.
Yeah,
I think those big three are the main points of this movie, right? Kind of his relationship and his marriage, but also with his brother. I think they were done really well. But again, side characters were just kind of there. And obviously, the whole idea was that he was trying to be a self-made man. He was trying to get to the championship on his own without anybody but his brother and his wife, essentially. But the mob becomes involved, wanting him to fix matches, and they kind of promise him that if he fixes the matches and loses a couple, they'll get him to the championship. They'll get him the spot in the championship to where he can actually fight and do his own thing. But that kind of destroys his ego, I think, in the long run. And then you just see him kind of crash and burn after that.
Yeah, I give the characters like a 9, literally just because of Jake. It's just so interesting, like write a character like that where you're like the whole time you're like, at least once I understood the movie, you're like, what is this guy doing? Like, he's making these terrible decisions. Like, you're judging him because he's making horrible decisions for his life. He's doing dumb things. But then you also feel bad for him the entire time. It's like, it's a very like human character. Where
Yeah.
it's like he's just a guy trying to like figure out his life with what he has given, and he's screwing up in a lot of ways, but you can't help but like feel sorry for him sometimes.
Especially like late stage, right? We see him obviously beating up his wife. He tries to fight his brother because he thinks he slept with her, but it's all just in his head. We know none
Yeah.
of this has actually happened. He's just so paranoid and so ego driven, I guess. But at the same time, we're kind of looking at him like, hey, man, we're supposed to be rooting for you, right? You think about stuff like, I know it's a boxing movie too, but you think about stuff like Rocky. Even in Rocky's lowest points, we're supposed to be rooting for him. But then we see something like this and he's just doing really bad things and it's hard to like root for this guy. But for some reason you keep going back to like, we believe in this guy. Like we saw in the beginning of the movie, he's kind of a come from nothing underdog. We're supposed to be rooting for this guy. And it's just hard to with the decisions he's making. Sometimes it's tough. Getting into the cinematography, I gave it a 10. I think this was so well done. And the choice to do black and white for that era, you know, that I would say, if I had to guess, 1930s, 1940s era of the United States, I think it was so well done. From the camera shots, obviously choosing to do black and white, more set design and costume design, but obviously everybody's clothes very much reflected that era. I think the ring shots in the beginning, the first couple fights he had, the boxing looked terrible. And I was like, oh God, this is going to show like through the whole movie. But then I think it was his final fight with Sugar Ray in the championship bout. That was such an amazing fight to watch. And I think it was so well shot for that time period. It was just kind of crazy to see it done like that. They had a couple panning shots where they would kind of zoom in on their faces as the boxers were fighting. And I just thought that looked so amazing.
Yeah, the fighting scenes were crazy.
Yeah.
They were so all over like definitely the first ones, I was like, this is a little cheesy. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Just like the sound effects and the blood like shooting in like perfect tube.
Yeah.
Like, that was kind of crazy, but I think whatever he's doing with that is just going over my head because everything else in this movie is so like meticulously done to like add to this feeling of paranoia and isolation that you're supposed to feel with Jake. And also this like that last fight scene where he's like getting washed in his own blood and there's like all this like Christian symbolism before he just like accepts this beating from Sugar Ray. It's like, I don't know. He's Scorsese is saying some things that I'm not smart enough to figure out with the cinematography, but it definitely took me some like videos and reading to appreciate it more.
Yeah.
After I watched it.
And I know that's a lot to do in some of these movies to kind of like have to do research after the movie to understand it fully. But I think in this case, it definitely worked. Like I imagine if I went back and rewatched this, I would pick up on so many small details like that. Like I didn't even notice any like a Christian symbolism like you were kind of saying there, but I definitely want to look into that now just to kind of understand what Scorsese was thinking during that scene. Because even like in that scene, it was hard for us to understand why is he giving up, right? Why is he giving up this bout? But I think at that point in his life, he just felt like he had accomplished everything he wanted to and he was ready to give up on it, you know?
I feel like he like wanted to be punished. Like I feel like that's
too.
just a consistent theme of like where even though he's making these bad decisions, he still feels like he deserves to be punished for it or something. I don't know. Because like even in the beginning, he's like, punch me as hard as you can to his brother. And it's like, why? What are we doing?
Yeah.
But he just wants that beating.
Yeah. Getting into that, that's actually, I think, one of the better scenes in this movie. Dialogue-wise, I gave it an 8. My favorite line is when he was locked up in the prison cell and he's just sitting there punching the wall, beating his head on the wall. He's like, I'm not an animal. I'm not an animal. Why are they doing this to me? I'm not an animal. I'm not an animal. But then he kind of accepts it right after, which I think you were getting into is kind of how he feels like he should be punished. But I don't think he thinks he's a bad person. He's just done some bad things. And that's kind of why he feels like he needs to be punished, but maybe not locked in jail for whatever reason. But yeah, dialogue, I gave it an 8. I think there were some really, really quotable lines throughout this whole movie, and I think it was done really well. Again, those scenes with De Niro and Pesci just sitting in a room arguing with each other, it's just a masterclass. You could
so
watch
good.
it for hours.
They have like the best fight chemistry.
Yeah, for real. And I think about the scene too where he's accusing him of, sleeping with his wife. And he's like, I'm not going to answer that question. And it's not because he did it. It's just because he's like, I'm your brother. I would never do something like that to you? Why are you going to sit here and harass me? I would never lie to you. I've always been on your side the whole time. And we see that reflected too with him seeing him on the street later in the movie and him trying to run up to him, give him a hug. And he wants nothing to do with him
Dude,
because he turned on him.
that was such a hard watch, that scene.
Yeah.
He's like trying to hug him. And he's just like, leave me alone. Ah, it's so awkward. But that scene where he's in the jail cell punching the wall, that was very powerful. Which one were we just doing? I'm sorry. Dialogue. I gave it an 8.3. It's just, it's very natural.
Yeah.
It never feels like the characters are just talking. But yeah, when he's repeating these questions, like, it's pretty interesting as a boxer.
Mm-hmm.
He's repetitively throwing punches in the ring, but then he's also like, every time he's antagonizing his family, it's repeated questions over and over again. So it's like almost kind of like a
verbal punch,
parallelism between boxing and the ring and fighting with his family.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even think of anything like that. Kind of like you were talking about, though, with how natural it was. I think the first scene where he gets to talk to Vicky, she's on the inside of the fence at the pool and he's on the outside. It just felt extremely awkward, right? Like, it's the first time you're talking to a girl you just met. It felt awkward. It felt real. It felt like they hadn't ever met or talked before, which was cool. I think that's very important in movies, to kind of get the viewer fully engulfed into what's going on.
Yeah, for sure.
Set design, I gave it an 8. Funny enough, I read again, Scorsese and his team really wanted to lay into the psychological state of Jake, and they kind of used the scenes, and I think the scenes in the ring, especially that last fight with Sugar Ray, was very interesting. I guess they started shifting ring sizes for different fights to make his mind basically feel more contained and pressurized, or kind of more open and free, as we see with him through the movie. So I wouldn't have even noticed, but the rings were smaller for some fights depending on where his kind of personal life was at during the movie as well, which is such a neat thing and something you wouldn't even notice until you read about it,
Yeah, that's cool. I definitely did not notice that. I think what I noticed more about the set design, like more so than the actual sets themselves, was just like the character placement. How a lot of times Jake is by himself and everyone else is over talking, and he's just completely in his own head and in his own world, like not seeing the reality of it, of what's actually going on, just feeling isolated. So I thought that was well done.
Yeah, it definitely was. And I mean, a lot of times they wanted to be talking to him too, but his ego wouldn't let him go talk to other people and get help from anybody else. I think that was a big thing for him too. He just wanted to do everything on his own. But, eventually, I guess being that alone and that isolated will catch up to you, which I guess, we've seen it do. Getting into acting, De Niro won the Academy Award for Best Actor for this role. I think it was a huge deal. But also Joe Pesci, this is kind of a breakout role for him. This is one of the early ones they did with Scorsese. And obviously they kept doing it down the road, which it worked. So yeah, why would you ever quit? But I think the main three had some really good acting. I think Vicky did really well too, especially those scenes where she was kind of stoic about Jake. He'd be yelling and screaming at her, and she's just kind of sitting there with a blank face, just because it really makes you feel like she's been through it before. She's kind of expected it this way. And she was very calm when everything with him was just absolutely crazy.
Yeah, dude, that definitely tracks that De Niro won the award for this, because that's an outstanding performance. Going in thinking it was going to be a boxing movie, I was not prepared for the kind of movie it was going to be. And I think just his acting being at that level was what really kept me engaged the first watch. He's incredible.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I watched another one this week, Scorsese and De Niro. I watched Taxi Driver, and I think if you liked this movie, you would really like Taxi Driver as well. A very similar acting from him, just in the sense that his character is very different, and you have to really pick up on his acting to see how the character's feeling. It's not explained a lot how Jake is feeling in this movie, right? It's not narrated over or anything like that, like we've seen in Casino. This is very much, you have to pick up the acting cues as well as the body language, right, to figure out how Jake's feeling, or the camera, like we talked about him being so isolated all the time. Taxi Driver, it's a very similar situation. He's very different. I'll say that. And I definitely recommend that one as well. Getting into directing, I gave it an 8. Obviously, it's widely considered a masterpiece for the new Hollywood era. Some people will call this one of the greatest movies of all time. There's definitely a fan base for this one. And I think Scorsese's vision for this turned out pretty immaculate. Turning a boxing movie, which most people would think about, I thought was about the sport of boxing, into a very profound character arc through the telling of Jake LaMotta. I can't pronounce his last name, but LaMotta. I think it was really well done, telling of a tragedy, basically. I think it was, really cool.
For sure, a tragedy. It's interesting that like both of these movies are both tragedies. I definitely saw a lot of parallels between how like Scorsese was directing these. Both movies had a line that was like, "You're giving me a bunch of answers, but you're not giving me the right answer."
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that was in like both movies. But I give directing like a 9. I read that Scorsese was like really not empathizing, but like he was relating to the story of Jake as he was directing this, because he had just had like New York was like a box office failure or something. It wasn't received well. So he was feeling like down on himself and felt like he wasn't making the best decisions. And so it's interesting to think that how much was he trying to tell this story, and then how much was he trying to put his own story into this movie. So I think that probably added to like how well he executed what he's trying to do with this movie.
Yeah, that's definitely very interesting to kind of see him relating with his main character like that. Definitely. Sure, it makes it way easier to tell that story. Yeah, getting into the soundtrack, I gave it an 8. Obviously, early 1930s, 1940s, a lot of jazz, a lot of swing music, a lot of vocal tracks, all curated by Robbie Robertson. I gave it an 8. I thought it was really well done. I don't think Scorsese misses on the soundtracks that often, and this is definitely not one of them.
The soundtrack is definitely good. I don't know if he's like trying to make the punching sound effects took me out of it like every single time. They're like so cheesy, which I understand he's probably trying to do on purpose, but it was just always like a little silly to me.
Yeah, definitely. And the blood, like the blood's shooting out of their head sound. It was like, I was like, what the hell? But
that stuff always took me out.
Yeah, who knows? I give him the benefit of the doubt too. Doing this in black and white, he definitely wanted to make this feel like an older movie than it actually was. So who knows? Maybe he tried to make it feel really corny and cheesy as well for that really old feel. But getting into the theme, I gave it an 8. I thought the themes were really well done here. Pretty much all directly through Jake's character and Robert De Niro's character. Self-destructive masculinity and kind of how that tore all his personal relationships apart. Extreme jealousy was a huge thing. I think he was jealous of his brother and the relationship that he had with all his friends. Also his wife, he was jealous of everybody that was around his wife. And then also just the consequences of toxic pride. He really let all his wins and his power get to his head. And that was kind of his downfall. Even when he did give up, he always felt like later in retirement that he still should be the center of attention with everything.
I mean, I think you're hitting it on the head. Like, I gave theme like a 9.6. He just executed like exploring those themes so perfectly. It was very interesting seeing him. Like, what do you think at the end when he's talking to himself in the mirror? And he's like saying like, I know it's a dialogue from another movie, but he's like saying like, oh, you're my brother. Like, you're supposed to do this. You let me down. But he's also talking directly to himself.
Yeah.
So is he still blaming others for not being able to get by? Or is he like blaming himself at that point? What do you think?
I took it as, yes, he was still blaming himself. I think although he is talking into the mirror, sorry, not blaming himself. I think he was still blaming others.
Or is he just
talking to himself? Yeah. I think even though he's talking to himself in the mirror, that he still, I think that was the point. To me, this is just how I took it. After everything we've seen and every mistake he made through the movie, he never learned his lesson. And so even in the end, after everything he's been through, us as the audience is expecting some kind of resolution in that sense, but we never get it. I think he's still completely blaming everybody else for all his problems, and he wants to do everything on his own, but he can't. He never will be able to, and so he's going to blame others for that rather than himself. What do you think?
I think I had the same takeaway from it. At least the first time I watched it, because he explicitly says like, "You're my brother, like you're supposed to help me." But then I wasn't so sure after reading more about it. I don't know. It's difficult. It's tricky to read that character because there's no like explicit exposition on what he's thinking, what's actually going on in his head. Like you just he just kind of leaves the audience not in the dark, but like you just have to
Figure
figure
it
it
out
out.
on your own.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's cool. And that's kind of what I was talking about with Taxi Driver, too. It's not like Casino where it's kind of narrated, so we know what everybody's intentions are. It's very left up in the air. And that's what makes the characters so interesting is that they can, it's kind of up for your interpretation. Do you want to root for this guy? Do you not? I'd say, in the sense, Taxi Driver is pretty much the same thing. I was questioning the whole time if I wanted to root for this guy, if I didn't want to. What really was going through his head, I'm not really sure, but this is how I feel about it. It's pretty neat when that happens.
yeah, it definitely makes for an interesting watch for sure. But it's also a little tiring trying to
Yeah,
figure it out the whole time.
it is tiring, and it gets discussion around it too. That's what you want when you're making movies like this. You want people to feel conflicted about what they're watching, and that gets people talking, that gets people watching. I got to ask you first. I completely forgot about this on the soundtrack, sound design, whatever. Was your sound like very quiet? Mine, I turned it on. I had my TV on 85 and I could barely hear what they were saying
I had
still.
subtitles on.
Yeah, I had subtitles on, but I just couldn't hear. And I watched it on YouTube with ads. So I don't know if that had something to do with it, if it was just YouTube's UI or whatever, but I could not hear anything anybody was saying.
Yeah, I had the same problem.
And then the Liberty Bibberty ads would come on and it was so loud on 85. I had to like mute the TV.
That's terrible.
I was like, what is going on? There's no chance I fall asleep in this movie because every 30 seconds I'm going to get hit with Liberty, Liberty, Liberty. It was so loud. But getting into editing, I gave it a 9. From what I've read, people widely regard this as one of the best edited movies of all time, which I agree. Those initial fight scenes were really poor, and I think that was probably just a time constraint thing. Some of those middling fights with Sugar Ray and the other people that he fought, the camera work and editing was so well done. I know it was cheesy blood splatter, cheesy punching sounds, but the camera work itself, them kind of fading in and fading out of the boxers' faces, I think it was really well done.
Yeah, I gave editing like an 8. I don't really know if I have much more to add to it than what you said. Yeah, nothing really like jumped out to me, editing specific.
Yeah. The editor was a lady named Schoonmaker. I mean, she won her first Academy Award for this too. So pretty awesome to see that. I mean, you put Scorsese's name on it, the Academy loves it. So, and then, yeah, overall, I gave this one an 8.4 or 84 out of 10 or 84 out of 100. Sorry. Yeah, I really love this movie. Definitely lived up to the expectation. Not exactly what I was expecting. I was expecting like a Rocky or Creed style boxing film, but this definitely was way more involved character wise than any of those kind of cliche boxing films, which I enjoyed. I think it's cool to kind of tell this egotistical character story through the lens of a sports professional, which is pretty neat.
I give it a 85. I definitely would have given it lower just after my first initial watch. I think because I was expecting something completely different. But I think the fact that like rewatching it and like looking into it some more, adding value to it, like that there's more to the movie than just the initial watch, I think says a lot about like how well done.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And it just makes me want to watch more De Niro movies, Pesci movies, Scorsese movies. It just keeps rolling. Me and Madison were kind of looking how many movies they did with Scorsese, and then you kind of see this transition period where it flips over to Leo kind of doing all these movies with Scorsese. So definitely 2 different eras for Scorsese, but it's kind of neat to see. And seems like there's 1,000 of them that I haven't watched yet. So it's nice knowing that I always got those to fall back on if I ever need to watch something.
Yeah, for sure. He's got a ton of movies. I was not hip to that.
Yeah. So all right, instead of doing a draft or a ranking this week, we're going to try something a little different than we've done before. So there's this game called Spotto Movies, kind of like Wordle in a sense. I've seen a lot of content creators be playing it on TikTok and Instagram and that stuff. So we're going to try this out for the first time. Bear with us because I've never played this. I've just seen people play it. So I kind of understand the rules. Mason definitely doesn't, even though I explained it to him. So
It'll
we'll
take me
try
a
it
few
out.
plays.
We'll try it out here. So let me share my screen. So essentially the idea is going to be that it's like Wordle, but we're guessing a movie. So we're going to guess a first movie and it's going to give us the information. Okay, cool. So essentially we'll guess the first movie. Green will be exactly correct. Gold will be close and gray is no match. So we can use a variety of hints, right? The year the movie came out, the genre of the movie, the box office, the studio, what it was rated, the overall score, directors, actors, anything we can really grasp onto to try to get close to the movie. So we have 10 tries. Let's hit play here and see how we start. Do we want to start with like Raging Bull? Something that we've seen this week. I think it's Meet the Fockers or Meet the Parents?
Meet the Parents. The best Robert De Niro movie.
All right. I know he's in Meet the Fockers as well, but we'll do Meet the Parents. Okay, it's a romance.
A horrible play.
And that's it.
Oh, we need Tyler.
So the absolute only thing we got was romance on our first guess, which is pretty crazy.
We don't have Tyler.
We didn't even get anything else close. I figured, box office might help, or I'm assuming it's probably PG. If it's not PG-13, I don't know many romance movies that are rated R unless it's like 50 Shades of Grey or something.
When did The Notebook come out after 2000?
It's going to be right or around that. It's got to be somewhere around that.
Oh, but
we can do The Notebook.
The Notebook, look at the score though. It's under 67.
And the box office is higher. So it made a lot of money.
A very popular movie.
Yeah.
But not well received.
Dude, this is going to be a lot. Hold on. Let's think here. And it's not a rom-com because
50 Shades.
You want to do 50 Shades?
That's 50 Shades.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad guess because the idea here is that it made a lot of money, but it wasn't well received probably with critics. All right, 50 Shades of Grey.
Yeah.
Bang! From 3.
Bang!
I was expecting this segment to take that much longer. Oh no, it's showing us the trailer. Oh no. Could you hear the sound of that? It was loud. I can't believe we hit that on the second try. I was expecting this segment to be way longer.
No.
All right, well, we'll have to try that again another week. That was kind of crazy. We had it right on because I knew if it was romance, it had to be something kind of dark because comedy was also off on Meet the Parents.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's it. I thought we were going to be here another 20 minutes.
Sorry, guys. We were just too good.
All right, cool. All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Mason. We'll definitely have you on a lot, obviously, seeing that Tyler's gone. But yeah.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Maybe we'll do a De Niro part 2, Scorsese part 2, Joe Pesci part 1. We'll watch some more of these.
For sure.
All right, man. I'll see you. Thanks for watching, guys.